The scream of that night still echoed in her ears. Rain was pouring like the sky itself was crying. Inside the tiny broken heart, a 12-year-old girl sat in the corner. Her name was Mira. Her hands were trembling, her eyes filled with fear, and in front of her, her father shouting in drunken rage, "You will never become anything in life." Those words pierced her heart like a knife. That was the first day Mira realized poverty doesn't just break your body, it breaks your dreams too. The next morning, she had to go to school, but she had no proper clothes, no shoes, and the worst part, she didn't know English at all. In class, when the teacher asked her to read, she stood up silent, and then the whole class burst into laughter. "Look at her, she can't even speak English." Mira said nothing, but something inside her broke, and maybe something was born too. That day, she made a decision. One day, I will speak English so well that the world will listen to me. But the problem was, she had no teacher, no money, no support. Only one thing: determination. At night, when everyone slept, Mira would go outside with a torn book in her hands. One she had found in the trash. She would spell every word, mispronounce it, then try again. Sometimes people laughed at her, sometimes they called her crazy, but she didn't stop because she remembered you will never become anything, and she had decided she would prove them wrong. Years passed. Mira was no longer the scared little girl, but the world around her hadn't changed much. She still struggled, still practiced under that same street light, still fought every single day, but now she had a dream that felt real. One day, her school announced a competition, English speech contest. The winner would get a chance to speak on a big stage in front of important guests. Mira's heart started racing. This was it, her moment. She wrote her speech, practiced every night, repeating each word again and again. Even when her tongue twisted, even when her voice cracked, she didn't stop. The day finally came. A big stage, bright lights, hundreds of eyes staring. Mira walked up slowly, her hands cold, her heart beat loud. She took a deep breath and started speaking. "Good morning, everyone." Her voice shook. The crowd started whispering. Then someone laughed, and just like that, everything came crashing down. Her mind went blank. Words disappeared. Fear took over. She stood there frozen. Tears filled her eyes, and the same voice echoed again in her head. "You will never become anything." The audience grew impatient. Some laughed, some looked away, and Mira, she ran off the stage. That night, she didn't go to the street light. For the first time, she gave up. She sat alone, hugging her knees, thinking maybe they were right. Maybe she really wasn't meant for this. Days passed. She stopped practicing, stopped dreaming, until one evening an old man noticed her, sitting quietly near the road. He had seen her before under that street light. He walked up to her and asked softly, "Why did you stop?" Mira looked up, surprised. "I felt," she whispered. The old man smiled gently. "Then you are closer than ever." She frowned, confused. He sat beside her and said, "People who never try never fail, and people who never fail never grow." Mira stayed silent. He continued, "I heard you that day. Your words weren't perfect, but your courage was real." For the first time in days, something sparked inside her again. The old man pointed towards the street light. "Your stage is still waiting." Mira looked at that light, the same light where her journey began. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they weren't of defeat. Slowly, she stood up, picked up her old torn book again, and whispered to herself, "This is not the end." That night, Mira went back to the street light. But this time, she wasn't the same girl who had run off the stage. There was pain in her eyes, but also fire. She opened her torn book, took a deep breath, and started again. "Good morning, everyone." Her voice still shook, but she didn't stop. Again and again, every wrong pronunciation she corrected, every broken sentence she rebuilt. Nights turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. While the world slept, Mira was rebuilding herself. She started listening to people speaking English, copying their tone, their expressions. Sometimes she would stand in front of a broken mirror, imagining a huge audience in front of her. She would speak, pause, smile, just like real speakers did. People still laughed at her, but now it didn't affect her, because this time she wasn't doing it to prove them wrong. She was doing it to prove herself right. One day, her school announced another event, district level competition, bigger stage, bigger audience, higher stakes. For a moment, her heart skipped. The memory of her last failure flashed in her mind. The laughter, the silence, the shame. She closed her eyes and then remembered the old man's words. "Your stage is still waiting." Mira slowly filled the form. This time, she wasn't running from fear. She was walking straight into it. The day arrived. A massive hall. Judges sitting in front. Students from different schools. The air felt heavy. Mira stood backstage, holding her paper tightly. Her hands trembled, but then she looked at her reflection and whispered, "You didn't come this far to stop now." Her name was called. She walked onto the stage, each step steady, each breath controlled. She reached the podium, looked at the audience, paused, and then she smiled. "Good morning, everyone." Her voice was clear, confident, strong, no laughter, only silence. She continued. Every word flowed, every sentence carried emotion. She didn't just speak English, she told her story, a story of pain, of struggle, of nights under a street light. People in the audience leaned forward, Some had tears in their eyes. The judges exchanged glances. This wasn't just a speech anymore. This was something real. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the entire hall erupted in applause. Loud, endless, powerful. Mira stood there frozen, not in fear this time, but in disbelief. Tears rolled down her face, but this time they were tears of victory. Results were announced. First prize goes to a pause. Mira. For a second, she couldn't move. Then the crowd cheered again. She walked up to the stage, her hands no longer shaking, her head held high. At that moment, the same girl who was once laughed at was now being listened to, and somewhere in the crowd, the old man smiled quietly and disappeared. Mira looked at the audience, took the mic one more time, and said softly, "Never let someone else decide what you can become." That day, Mira didn't just win a competition, she found her voice. After that victory, things slowly began to change. People who once laughed at her now clapped for her. Teachers who ignored her now encouraged her. But Mira didn't let it get to her head because she knew this was just the beginning. She kept practicing every single day, not under the streetlight anymore, but now on bigger stages, school events, city programs, local seminars. Every time she spoke, she got better. Her words became sharper, her voice more powerful, her confidence unshakable. Years passed. The little girl from that broken heart was no longer invisible. One day, she got an invitation to speak at a national level event, a huge stage, thousands of people, cameras, lights, media. As she stood backstage, holding the mic, for a moment, everything came rushing back. That rainy night, her father's harsh words, the laughter in the classroom, the failure on stage. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When her name was announced, she walked onto the stage, calm, confident, unstoppable. She looked at the audience, thousands of faces waiting to hear her, and then she began. Years ago, I was told I would never become anything. Pin drop silence. Today, I stand here to tell you that your beginning does not decide your ending. Her voice echoed across the hall, strong, fearless, real. She spoke about her struggles, her nights under the streetlight, her failures, her pain, and how she turned it all into strength. People weren't just listening, they were feeling every word. Some wiped their tears, some nodded in silence, because her story was their story too. When she finished, there was silence, deep, emotional silence. And then, a standing ovation. The entire hall stood up, clapping louder than ever before. The sound was not just applause, it was respect. Mira smiled, her eyes shining with tears. But this time, There was no pain in them, only pride. From a girl who couldn't speak a single sentence in English to a speaker who inspired thousands, her journey proved one thing. It doesn't matter where you start, what matters is you don't stop. And somewhere in the crowd, someone sitting quietly decided to try again. No matter how broken your voice is today, one day the world will stop and listen to it. Thank you so much for listening me. See you in the next video.